Max Muller, a paid employee of the British Empire to eradicate Vedic culture. Dear friends, nowadays on social media you can find content of so-called Bhim supporters who try to do propaganda on following issues. Point number 1. Lord Ram killed Shambhu. Point number 2. Brahma raped his own daughter Saraswati. 3. Brahmins ate beef in Rigvedic era. 4. Aryans attacked India and enslaved local inhabitants. 5. Manu created caste system. 6. Brahmins were born out of Brahma's mouth, etc. etc. Can you imagine Britishers got it written in Sanatan Scriptures to defame Hinduism and they employed author for this on salary, and these authors wrote all this shit sitting in London and Britishers were paying them handsome amount on per page basis. Let us discuss and know about one of such author and translator, Frederick Max Muller. Max Muller was a British agent specially employed in 1847 to write the translations of the Vedas in such a demeaning way so that the Hindu should lose faith in them. His personal letters reveal this fact. He was highly paid for the job according to the statistical information given on page 214 of the English Education 1798-1902 by John William Anderson. Printed by Cambridge University Press in 1930, the revised scale of a male teacher was £90 per year and for a woman £60 in 1853. The present salary of a teacher in London is £14,000 to £36,000 per year, which averages a minimum of at least 200 times increase in the last 146 years. Max Muller was paid £4 per sheet of his writing, which comes to £800 of today, 1999. This is an incredibly high price for only one sheet of writing, but it's the general law of business that the price of a commodity increases with its demand. The British were in such an imperative need to get someone to do this job, and the Max Muller was the right person. So they paid whatever Max Muller asked for. His enthusiastic letter to his mother dated April 15, 1847 reveals this fact. Max Muller's letters dated August 25, 1856 and December 16, 1868 reveal the fact that he was desperate to bring Christianity into India so that the religion of the Hindus should be doomed. His letters also reveal that he lived in poverty before he was employed by the British, and his duplicity in translation was praised by his superiors. In London, where he lived, there was a lot of Orientalists working for the British. To Chevalier Bunson's 56 St. John Street, Oxford, August 25, 1856, he wrote, "I should like to live for 10 years quite quietly and learn the language, try to make friends and then see whether I was fit to take part in a work by means of which the old mischief of Indian priestcraft could be overthrown, and the way opened for the entrance of simple Christian teaching. Whatever finds root in India soon overshadows the whole of Asia." To the Dean of St. Paul, Dr. Milman, Stratton House, Bournemouth, February 26, 1867, he wrote, "I have myself the strongest belief in the growth of Christianity in India. There is no country so ripe for Christianity as India, and yet the difficulties seem enormous. Source: The True History and the Religion of India, a concise encyclopedia of authentic Hinduism, by Swami Prakashanand Saraswati, page 268-270. For more on Max Muller, refer to chapter 1, Indiologists and Aryan Invasion Theory. As Max Muller, the propagator of Aryan Invasion Theory, wrote to his wife, "It took only 200 years for us to Christianize the whole of Africa. But even after 400 years, India eludes us. I have come to realize that it is Sanskrit which has enabled India to do so, and to break it, I have decided to learn Sanskrit." The soul of India lies in Sanskrit, and Lord Macaulay saw it that the later generations are successfully cut off from their roots. Source Assaulting India's Pluralistic Ethos by D. Harikumar, The Hindu. To his wife, Oxford, December 9, 1867. I feel convinced, though I shall not live to see it, that this edition of mine and the translation of Veda will thereafter tell to a great extent on the fate of India and on the growth of millions of souls in that country. It is the root of their religion, and to show them what that root is, I feel sure the only way of uprooting all that has sprung from it during the last 3000 years. To his mother, 5 Newman's Row, Lincoln's Inn Fields, April 15, 1847. I can yet hardly believe that I have at last got what I have struggled for so long. I am to hand over to the company ready for press 50 sheets each year. For this I have asked pound 200 a year, pound 4 a sheet. They have been considering this matter since December, and it was only yesterday that it was officially settled. In fact, I spent a delightful time, and when I reached London yesterday, I found all settled, and I could say and feel, thank God. Now I must at once send my thanks, and set to work to earn the first pound 100. To Chevalier Bunsen, 55 St. John Street, Oxford, August 25, 1856. India is much riper for Christianity than Rome or Greece were at the time of St. Paul. The rotten tree has for some time had artificial supports. For the good of this struggle, I should like to lay down my life, or at least to lend my hand to bring about this struggle. Tulip Singh is much at count and is evidently destined to play a political part in India. To the Duke of Agril, Oxford, December 16, 1868. India has been conquered once, but India must be conquered again, and that second conquest should be a conquest by education. Much has been done for education of late, but if the funds were tripled and quadrupled, that would hardly be enough. If new national literature may spring up, impregnated with Western ideas yet retaining its native spirit and character. A new national literature will bring with it a new national life and new moral vigor. As to religion, that will take case of itself. The missionaries have done far more than they themselves seem to be aware of. The ancient religion of India is doomed, and if Christianity does not step in, whose fault will it be? On April 17, 1855, Bunsen wrote to thank Max Muller for an article on his outlines. You have so thoroughly adopted the English discourse that it will not be easy for anyone to suspect you of having written this curious article. It especially delights me to see how ingeniously you contrive to say what you announce you do not wish to discuss. That is the purport of the theology. In short, we are all of opinion that your cousin was right when she said of you in Paris to Newcomb that you ought to be in the diplomatic service. Max Muller declared that Hinduism is dead and dying religion while Christianity is living and vibrant. He said, the worship of Shiva or Vishnu and the other popular deities of the same name, in many cases of a more degraded and savage character than the worship of Jupiter, Apollo and Minerva. It belongs to a stratum of thought which is long buried beneath our feet. It may live on like the lion and the tiger, but the mere air of free thought and civilized life will extinguish it. Westminster Lectures on Missions, December 1873. There is much more to tell. It was on December 1854 the Prussian ambassador Baron von Bunsen became instrumental in arranging a meeting of the German Max Muller with the English Lord Thomas Babington Macaulay. Germany and England were not on good terms. The East India Company agreed to pay pound 200 per annum to Max Muller, the German national, for translation of Vedas and other Hindu scriptures. Then the annual salary of a British teacher was only £60. The German Max Muller accepted the offer in the interest of spreading Christianity in India. The company agreed to pay a sum of 1 lakh only in the way as he writes to his wife in his letter in July 1862. As a truly declared Christian, he writes, "All I can say is that I have read and heard the worst that can be said against our religion. I mean the true original teachings of the Christ. I feel that I am ready in mind, if not in body, to lay down my life for the truth of his teachings. All our difficulties arise from the doctrine of man and not from his doctrine." His friend P. Pusey in 1860 wrote to him, "Your work will form a new era in the efforts of the conversion of India, and Oxford will have reason to be thankful that by giving you a home, it will have facilitated a work of such primary and lasting importance for the conversion of India, and which, by enabling us to compare that false religion with the true, illustrate the more than blessedness of what we enjoy." Cradle of Civilization, page 12. Max Muller, in his letter to Beramji Malwari on 28 January 1882, writes, "People like Dayanand give undue importance to Vedas. They deduce the meaning which is not in the root. Observe Veda as a historical document only. Then even the simple thought of the primitives would look present. But to search the source of electricity, magnetism, ethics, and philosophy, we have to cut a sorry figure." Max Muller set the date of Rigveda at only 1200 BC under Christian faith. The Christian belief current in those days was that the world was created at 9 am on 23rd October 4004 BC. Bishop Asser had declared it as the date of creation. The Holy Bible says that the human race began with Adam and Eve. Since their most direct descendants were among the Semitic tribe, Hebrew had to be the oldest language. Then how can the Aryans be the possessors of the oldest culture? They were not ready to accept a position which proves their civilization inferior to the Vedic culture. Therefore, Vedic culture, according to them, has to be of a later date and time. The cause of such facile conclusion and tailored theories, ignoring the facts of available history, was their commitment to Christianity. There was great opposition among scholars. Max Muller had to eventually disown the date he had ascribed, and had to accept that he put 1200 BC without any evidence whatsoever. However, leftist historians still consider this date as benchmark, and on the basis of Max Muller's nonsense translation, prove Arya eating non-vegetarian food and doing animal sacrifice. Dales, a USA historian, challenged the proposed date and the findings to it. Wheeler, the political appointee of Lord Curzon, the Viceroy of India, was quick to retrace, but not without a cunning move. He amended and said, "It cannot be proved that the invaders were Aryans. It is also possible that it might be completely wrong to conclude like it. But however, it is not entirely impossible." Refer In Search of Cradle of Civilization, page 7-8. Max Muller was changing positions regarding the dates of said invasion. He said, "Whether Vedic hymns were written in 1000, 1500 or 2000 BC or 3000 BC, no power on earth will ever be able to determine." Noyer says, "We have no evidence for new population entering into subcontinent and replacing the indigenous people of the Indus Valley." From scholars like Langdon to Reverend Free, in their archaeological investigation, accepted India as original homeland of Aryans and disapproved the IIT of Max Muller. Thereafter, Gordon, Child, and Wheeler indicated that the Aryans may possibly be the invaders. McCoy was doubtful. Wheeler and Norman Brown sided with Max Muller and deliberately distorted the historical basis. Wheeler had to retrace and Child was hesitant. From Sir Wheeler to Stuart Pigott, there has been planned attempt to prove the Aryan invasion theory. Max Muller was the mastermind behind the Aryan invasion theory. He was the highly paid German employee of the East India Company intended to safeguard the rights of the foreigners on Indian soil to rule the country. So he planned to deny the Hindus of any political and moral grounds to claim independence from the British, proving that they too, like them, were outsiders and invaders. The then Viceroy Lord Curzon said that India had ever been the booty of foreign invaders, and the British PM said, "We have as much right to be in India as anyone else, except perhaps for the depressed class who are the native stock." Corroborate else political aspects of the AIT debate, page 49. The European political weapon, the AIT questioned the very Aryan identity on their own land of birth. The Loyalists and the Macaulay brand Indians began to justify the British presence and called it a reunion of the Aryan cousins. Macaulay was determined to prove his Aryan invasion theory. He ignored the significance of Vedas as historical documents and declared Vedas as mythology and theology, but not as history. It is really strange that Europeans see the relevance of history in their Christian scriptures, the Bible, and treat Bible as history, the historical situation out of which the Old Testament and the Gospels grew. Even they set aside the linguistic evidence to prove that the epics bear no historical evidence. These missionaries scholars planned further to call these epics as myth and create doubt and confusion even on the existence of Rama and Krishna. We all know that the treatment of myth in the Western experience has been negative. The 8th century Greek and Roman heritage of pre-Christian religious stories badly distorted and misshaped and were treated as myths. This word was used for all non-Jews and non-Christian cultural stories. On the other hand, the missionaries scholars choose to place biblical and Christian stories in the category of history. So the stories of Moses and parting of Red Sea came as history, unmindful of any chronological and textual evidences. It is strange that these assorters considered Ramayana and Mahabharata as myth despite enough archaeological and textual evidences. What else could we expect of these people who were out to expel Hindus from their own land? They used the term myth as a powerful weapon to minimize the effect of Hindu way of life. The religious literature and sacred stories known to common folk were declared myths. All ancient seers, Manu, Parashar, Vyas, Narad, Vasisht, etc. and even Rama and Krishna became mythic and imaginary persons. Vedas, Aranyakas, Brahmanas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, all ancient literature of value, became mythology. They founded anti-Vedic and pro-Christian societies in order to de-Hinduism and Christianize the de-Hinduized ones. One such was Brahma Samaj. Max Muller in September 1879 said, "There is a religious movement going on in India. The Brahma Samaj, with both in its origin and in its later development, is mainly the result of European influences. It began with an attempt to bring the modern corrupt form of worship back to the purity and simplicity of the Vedas, and by ascribing to the Vedas the authority of a divine revelation, it was hoped to secure that infallible authority without which no religion was supposed to be possible." How was that movement stopped and turned into a new channel? Simply by the publication of Veda and by work of European scholars such as Stevenson, Mill, Rosin, Wilson and others, who showed the natives what the Vedas really were and made them see the folly of their way. At the beginning, the Samaj followed the chanting of Vedic hymns in its meetings and accepted the infallibility of the Vedas. Raja Ram Mohan Rai was the leading light, who cherished Vedic ideals but also wanted some reforms. By 1848, the Vedic utilitarianism was superseded and Western influence came in. Feeling of Hinduism faded away and forefathers were not remembered with pride. These people hesitated in mentioning the word Brahma even. The name of Hindu sages and seers were neglected. It was believed that since creation there have never been men so learned as Europeans. Fortunately, there existed a line of thinkers like Dayanand, Arya Samaj, R.K. Mission and Yogi Aurobindo who saved the fall and decline of Hinduism. Macaulay said, "We must form a class of persons who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color but English in taste, in opinion, in mind and in intellect." Fortunately for British and unfortunately for Indians, the British continued to get such Indian people, Indian in blood and color but English in taste, in opinion, in mind and in intellect. Unfortunately for India, even after independence, Nehru-led Congress government, followed by later Congress governments, have followed the same mantra as desired by Macaulay a century ago. The country desperately needs a spiritual revival among the administration and media. Until and unless this is achieved, our cultural glory will not be reinstated. References: The Life and Letters of Friedrich Max Muller, first published in 1902, London and New York, reprint in 1976, USA.